Coming up on this Monday edition of the San Francisco 49ers Report, Chase Senior hanging out here with you. We have so much to get to after another Niners victory on the road. Why Mac Jones excelled against the Saints yesterday. Robert Saleh's defense delivers again. Biggest Niners winners against New Orleans, and why fans should be really excited about this football team. It's all coming your way, but you know the drill and you know the deal. It's a Victory Monday here on the show, so if you're pumped up about San Francisco being 2-0 to start the 2025 campaign, I want you to hit that thumbs up icon and like the video. What I loved about this Niners win over the Saints, Mac Jones was spectacular, and we'll talk about his performance in further detail here, but to get that performance from your backup quarterback on the road after you just paid your franchise quarterback in Brock Purdy, and he's going to be out potentially for a few weeks, that was a big-time performance in game from Mac Jones. This was also a very well-rounded offensive showing. I really like how Kyle Shanahan and Mac Jones got so many players involved on the offensive side of the ball. I believe that 8 different players caught a pass for San Francisco, and this is a team with their weaponry and with their receiving targets is really banged up. Yet, a lot of different players were able to get involved with this Niners offense yesterday. Robert Saleh's defense in Week 1 closed the game thanks to Nick Bosa. Robert Saleh's defense in Week 2 closed the game again in a big spot to notch the dub. Nick Bosa with that huge sack on the second-to-last drive of the game, and then Bryce Huff, the strip sack of Spencer Rattler. Ball game, blouses, New Orleans, we'll see ya. And the Niner fans, as they were showing out at the Superdome in New Orleans, made a lot of noise as San Francisco able to enjoy a long flight back to Northern California. I also really like how San Francisco in the first 2 games of the year has played very complimentary football. Now, of course, Jake Moody missed those 2 field goals in Week 1. Sayonara, we'll see you later. The one was on him, 27 yards off the left upright. The second one was not on him. It was a coverage breakdown, a protection breakdown, because Matt Hennessy got bowled over and the field goal was blocked. But outside of that, San Francisco has been very sound on offense, defense, and special teams. That was not the case last year, and we'll talk about that coming up as well. And for the Niners to come back home in Week 3, home opener, big game against the 2-0 Arizona Cardinals, huge game inside the NFC West. The way that you won, the identity that you are forming, the intestinal fortitude that we've seen from this ball club, and how San Francisco in 2 difficult environments, while not playing their best peak football, has been able to win 2 road games with 2 different quarterbacks. Again, big-time stuff. And these things are clear with this Niners team to start the 2025 campaign. And it's a stark difference from last year. I don't think the 49ers win the first 2 games that they've won this year last year. How often were the Niners locked in these close games a year ago and they found a way to lose? They would crumble. They would cave. They would disintegrate. And they would make mistakes on offense, defense, and special teams, which would directly result in losses. Last year, San Francisco was a team that mentally, physically, spiritually was broken. They were worn down. They were fatigued, and they were tired. But this year, thanks in part, I believe, to this youth movement having a full offseason to get re-energized, the Niners are coaching and playing like a spirited team that has that injection of energy. And when you go in a youth movement, sometimes it's the byproduct of that. But I love what I'm seeing from this ball club right now. And another thing, too, you saw Kyle Shanahan in the locker room with that speech after Week 1 and that victory against Seattle. The same can be said after the Week 2 game against New Orleans. He's having a smile on his face. The bags under his eyes, not as big. He seems happier. He seems re-energized. It seems like Kyle Shanahan is having fun again as well. And this is just a well-rounded ball club that I think, as the season progresses, can win in a variety of ways. This is pretty wild, too. The 49ers are the first team in the National Football League to start a season with 2 road wins when they've started 2 different quarterbacks since 1988. The last team to do that, the 1988 49ers. Joe Montana and Steve Young. Now, that team went on to win the Super Bowl under Bill Walsh, and I'm not saying that San Francisco is going to win the Super Bowl this year. Obviously, plenty of season left. A lot of meat left on the bone. But it speaks to the difficult nature of what the Niners have been able to pull off. And I've talked about this a lot, right? This is what quality coaching does. And we've seen with San Francisco, I said it going into the year, they have, top to bottom, one of the best coaching staffs in the National Football League. Kyle Shanahan as the offensive mind, Robert Saleh as the defensive mind, and Brant Boyer has improved the special teams unit overnight. But quality coaching gives you an opportunity to win every single week. It also elevates and helps to develop players on the roster. And also, quality coaching maximizes skill sets. It puts players in a position to thrive and succeed. It makes them confident ball players. And we're seeing that with the three units with this Niners team to start the year. Offense, defense, special teams. They are a well-coached team that is buttoned up, and they're executing, especially when it really matters, late in games. And we're seeing the youth movement for the San Francisco happen before our very eyes, where these young players are also playing well because of the top-notch coaching. And let's talk about Mac Jones here. Mac Jones was terrific on Sunday. He put up one of the best performances for any quarterback in the NFL in week 2. This is also a great example of what elite coaching can do, and it goes to show you why Kyle Shanahan is special and one of the top offensive minds in the NFL. Think about who Shanahan has had playing well for him at the quarterback spot. This is where that term quarterback whisperer comes from, right? Andy Reid, Kevin O'Connell. Kyle Shanahan has been able to win and have these players playing well under his tutelage with this play calling under his watch. CJ Beathard, Nick Mullins, Jimmy Garoppolo, Brock Purdy, yesterday, Mac Jones. And when you have an elite offensive play caller and offensive mind, he is able to put together a really sound game plan. He is able to put together a good week of prep so that you see a performance like you saw yesterday when your backup quarterback in Mac Jones was ready to go. He was so efficient. He was incredible on third downs. He finishes the day 26 of 39, 279 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks, with a passer rating of 113.1. The strip sack was on him, but he was able to make up for it. And Mac Jones on third down, by the way, 7 of 12, 121 yards through the air, 3 touchdowns, no picks, a passer rating of 132.2. And the drive at the end of the half, that is just high-level offensive football acumen and execution that we saw on display. Furthermore, this is why Mac Jones was able to play so well on Sunday. The offensive line protection was good. 5 of the 6 Niners' highest-graded players offensively were offensive linemen. Finally, this offensive line was able to hold up against a defense that at times got very aggressive with the play calling of Brandon Staley. I also really like how Kyle Shanahan trusted Mac Jones with his play calling. There was well-rounded ball distribution, 8 different players caught a pass, and Kyle Shanahan put a lot on Mac Jones' plate, and Mac was able to pass the test with flying colors. As a player and as a thrower, saw this a little bit at Alabama. You've seen it at times throughout his NFL career, although he hasn't had good coaching. He hasn't had quality players around him. Mac throws the deep ball well, but like Brock Purdy, he throws with really good touch, timing, anticipation, accuracy, and he can really layer balls beautifully. On some of those third down passes, especially to Jawan Jennings, the touchdown to Christian McCaffrey, you saw how Mac was able to layer those balls over defenders, big-time throws. And I think this Niners team has tons of offensive potential. Imagine what this offense can look like once Brock Purdy comes back, who's also mobile behind this offensive line when Mac Jones is not. Imagine what this offense can look like when Brandon Ayuk gets healthy, George Kittle returns, Demarcus Robinson comes back, and if this offensive line can hold up like they did in week 2, I know it's the Saints, but they do have some quality players on the defensive side of the ball. Sky's the limit for this Niners ball club. And this is great news right here. I love this. I need more of it. I want this to be a week in, week out type of deal. 5 of the 6 Niners top graded players against the Saints, as I mentioned, offensive linemen. They knew that they needed to hold up in protection for Mac because when he's pressured, when he's blitzed, he has really struggled in his career. That was the biggest talking point I talked about all week. I'm glad that Kyle Shanahan watches this show. Speaking of quality coaching, Robert Saleh's usage of his personnel has been sweet and awesome to watch the first 2 games of the year. And against Seattle and against New Orleans, Robert Saleh has been able to put his defensive players in a position to succeed where they've been able to make impactful plays by being creative. And we've seen some exotic looks from Robert Saleh as well. Let's take a look at the tape. Safety Jair Brown is kind of falling out of favor with this Niners coaching staff. He played 2 snaps in week 1. He played 7 snaps against the Saints yesterday. The Niners really like Jason Pinnock and Marquis Siegel. But Jair Brown was on the field for a huge play, which was almost bigger in the game yesterday. And I just love the personnel usage here. Now, I'm going to step out of the frame here because you see how Nick Bosa is circled. Look who is right behind him. That is safety Jair Brown. Look at who is to his left at that second level at linebacker. Fred Warner and D. Winters. Robert Saleh used Jair Brown as a big nickel/hybrid linebacker. He dropped back into coverage, almost had an interception of Spencer Rattler. And I like using Brown in that manner because at Penn State, he was a very versatile player. As for the Niners' lightning package, this is how you get creative when you rush for in generating pressure on the quarterback. Look at the personnel usage here. You see Bryce Huff at defensive end, right beyond my right shoulder, and you see Mykel Williams and Nick Bosa lined up at defensive tackle with Yetur Gross-Matos opposite of Bryce Huff at the other defensive end spot. That's a lot of different skill sets here, a lot of speed and physicality on the field. Also in this game, 26-14, fourth quarter, little more than 12 minutes to go. Saints run it with Alvin Kamara, and at the snap, Mykel Williams, who on early downs plays a lot of defensive end because he's so good at setting the edge and stopping the run, and on pass rushing downs and pass rushing situations, he lines up at defensive tackle because he can use his athleticism, length, and physicality to win against interior offensive linemen. Well, here, he gets one of his 2, I believe, TFLs from yesterday's game lined up at defensive end, one-on-one against a tight end. I think the Saints learned their lesson. Other teams should learn their lesson. You put a tight end against Mykel Williams, he's going to win that matchup. He's going to win that battle. He threw the tight end to the side and then tackled Kamara for a loss of a couple of yards. The play that decided the game was the Bryce Huff strip sack of Spencer Rattler blouses. And you look at the personnel grouping here, and I like what Robert Saleh did because of the players that you have, the look that you pose the offense with Fred Warner teasing blitz. But on this play where Bryce Huff is able to force the fumble and strip sack Spencer Rattler, a couple of things really stand out to me here. Look at the get off for Bryce Huff right here. This ball has been snapped. No other player on the defensive line has moved. Bryce Huff is already past the line of scrimmage with that quick twitch explosion and get off. And on this play, he also displayed a lot of bend to turn the corner and get to Rattler. But here you see Sam Okuwanu lined up at defensive end. You see Nick Bosa lined up at defensive tackle. Mykel Williams lined up at defensive tackle. And because of the presence of Mykel at defensive tackle, he got double teamed. And then the Niners elsewhere able to collapse the pocket. At Western Kentucky, Upton Stout was a corner who thrived out of the slot. And he was a really good run defender. That was backed up by his TFL numbers, and occasionally he would get some sacks and quarterback hits. He's really good when he's around the line of scrimmage. He's also good with that 4-3 speed of covering downfield. He's a little bit of a smaller player, so he's best suited on the inside. And when you're playing in the inside at nickel corner, you got to be able to blitz the quarterback, right? Or at least if you can, it's an added advantage for this Niners defense. Look at Robert Saleh here. He calls Upton Stout's number on the corner blitz. He's able to defeat a blocker as this play progresses, and he sacks Spencer Rattler for his first career sack. This is just high-level stuff that we're seeing to start the year from Robert Saleh and Chris Kocurek, who's in his bag as well, that we never, ever, ever saw from Nick Sorensen. The leap from Sorensen to Saleh, one of the biggest upgrades in coaching that you can imagine. Now, we have a lot more to get to here on the show. I do want to give a shout out to Prize Picks for making today's 49ers Report possible. Look, you and I make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement this season on Prize Picks, where it's good to be right. There's a reason millions of people have signed up with Prize Picks. There's a reason why it's the #1 fantasy sports app. It's easy to use. It's easy to get your picks in less than 60 seconds, but the deals are awesome. Whether they're specials on your lineup or they're specials like this, winning big up to 2,000 times your money, or when you play your first $5 lineup, getting $50 back instantly. All you have to do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and if you get your picks right, you could cash in. Prize Picks also puts their users first. All withdrawals, fast, safe, and secure. Prize Picks offers Venmo, Apple Pay, MasterCard, and more for quick and easy deposits into your account. Prize Picks, they also offer injury reboots. If one of your players leaves the game in the first half and doesn't return, like Kyle Juszczyk, Prize Picks won't count it as a loss. It's the best way to win cash this football season. Which players are going off, which ones aren't. Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your takes into cash all season on Prize Picks. Here's our lineup for Monday Night Football tonight, a doubleheader. You have Bucks, Texans, Chargers, Raiders. Baker Mayfield, more than 1.5 passing touchdowns. CJ Stroud, less than 11.5 rushing yards against that Buccaneers fearsome front. And then Ladd McConkey, more than 72.5 receiving yards. Get $50 when you play $5. This is for new users, of course. Real money sports action made easy. Claim your $50 now. Download the app, create an account, head to prizepicks.com/CLNS. And that's $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it is good to be right. All right, more of my winners against the Saints. Obviously, I've mentioned some of these players so far. Mac Jones, for the reasons that I mentioned. We'll take a look at more of Jones's numbers coming up here in just a moment. Christian McCaffrey just impacting the game in so many ways as a ball carrier and as a receiver yesterday. Jawan Jennings, breakout performance. I hope the Niners can find a way to keep him long-term because he's a special and clutch player who's also so good as a run blocker. I just love the way that he carries himself and plays the game of football. He keeps playing like he did yesterday against New Orleans, though. He might outprice himself for San Francisco's liking. How about Kendrick Bourne, right? Kendrick Bourne signed less than a week ago from when the game took place, last Monday. And he's out there making big catches. He's out there bringing energy to the offense. He's out there run blocking. He's a really valuable player. Luke Farrell, first career touchdown catch yesterday, picking up yards after the catch. Not the fastest dude, usually used as a blocker, but that touchdown was impressive. Jake Tonches a couple of times had some noteworthy catches. The offensive line needed to protect Mac Jones. They did for the most part. Shout out to Trent Williams and the way that he played while he was injured. He even said going to the stadium, didn't think he was going to play. Then once he got to the stadium, he saw his teammates, said to himself, I'm a captain. The competitive juices got flowing. And he played very well, all things considered. Nick Bosa. Look, this is why you pay him $34 million per year. This is why he's one of the top defensive ends in the game. First 2 weeks, he has made game-deciding, game-winning plays. And I think he's re-energized a little bit because as compared to last year, when the Niners didn't have a lot of overall talent along the defensive line, and a lot of that talent was older, now there's this influx of youth. Nick Bosa's feeling himself, and he really likes how Robert Saleh and Chris Kocurek are using him, right? Twists and stunts, left defensive end, right defensive end, lining up at defensive tackle. And you can tell when he's lined up at defensive tackle with his speed power combo, he's licking his chops. Nick Bosa is a special player. Mykel Williams. Remember week 1, everybody was saying, Mykel Williams, where was he? I didn't see him. In week 1, there were a couple of times where he took on double teams, and his presence out there led to him getting double teamed, and it led to other guys making plays. In this game against New Orleans, a couple of TFLs, he's able to collapse and push the pocket. He's able to set the edge against the run. Mykel Williams, breakout performance. Bryce Huff won the game for San Francisco. The Niners are paying him under $8 million this year. They gave up a 5th-round pick, which can become a 4th. He pretty much earned his salary by putting that game on ice. Fred Warner just continues to amaze me, and I shouldn't be surprised by that. He's missed 1 game in his career. He's been a Defensive Player of the Year candidate every year over the last several. He's a perennial All-Pro and Pro Bowler, but the plays that he continues to make, the energy, the speed, the physicality that he plays with, the football IQ that he has, it's so special. And when you watch 54, you understand and realize you're watching a generational player who doesn't come along often. And the play that he made on Alvin Kamara, when Kamara trapped the ball to his shoulder and Fred Warner sees that, he punches the ball out, then recovers it. High level. And then Eddie Pinheiro. You know, he signed last week after the Niners moved on from Jake Moody. He misses his first PAT, and I imagine he was feeling that pressure. But then he comes back and drills kicks of 44 and 46 yards right down the pipe. As for Christian McCaffrey, last week, more than 140 all-purpose yards against Seattle. In this game, more than 100 all-purpose yards. And I love how the Niners didn't have to overly rely on him because this Niners offense is different when he's healthy, and I want to see him stay healthy. And with CMC, you can't run him into the ground this early. You did it in week 1 when he had more than 31 touches. In this game, it was very even, just like the ball distribution was. And you didn't have to just run him into the ground, but you used him in a really awesome, creative way. Obviously, the 13 carries for 55 yards, good stuff right there. But how about how he was lined up in the slot when he caught that touchdown? Another big 3rd down conversion late in the game where he's lined up, flanking Mac Jones, but almost like as a wide receiver in the backfield. That's the type of personnel usage I love to see. Jawan Jennings, what a game. 10 targets, 5 catches. I thought he could have been a little bit better. You know, there were 2 passes that he dropped that sometimes he's able to reel those passes in. Now, they were really difficult grabs, but that's what we come to expect from Jawan Jennings because he's made those plays before. But 3rd and Jawan was once again 3rd and Jawan. 5 grabs, 89 yards, and a touchdown, picking up yards after the catch. Just a huge performance from him when the Niners needed it the most. And receivers, or quarterbacks, excuse me, they just trust Jawan Jennings in a big-time spot. And they'll throw out 50-50 balls expecting that he's going to come down and make a play, and he seemingly always finds a way to make those plays. For Kendrick Bourne, not a gaudy stat line by any means, but he was targeted 3 times. He caught every one of those targets, 3 catches, 32 yards, and it was the plays that he made and the spots that he made, given the circumstances of him being signed last Monday. He gets caught up. Obviously, he knows the scheme, and he knows the system from his previous stint with the Niners, but that was also a long time ago. Hadn't been with this team since 2020. Plug-and-play guy, and he was really good. 10.7 yards per catch and a couple of big grabs there. Mac Jones on 3rd down. I read you those numbers a little bit earlier. 7 of 12, 121 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, a passer rating of 132.2. He was nearly perfect on the money downs, and that went a long way in the Niners winning this game. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention this player. A player who was balled out for the Niners so far this year, who's fallen under the radar because Nick Bosa in week 1 and 2, Bryce Huff in week 2 made some of the big plays to determine the game. It's a player who we haven't mentioned a lot, which is a good thing when you're playing cornerback because that means you're not giving up big catches. It's Deommodore Lenoir. The Niners gave him a contract extension during the year last year. It was a smart and heady move to do that because you got ahead of the exploding corner market. You got him at a bargain. You saved millions of dollars in paying him early. This is a player who has still not given up a touchdown his last 3 years. And in 72 coverage snaps to start the year, Diamador Lenore has given up 3 catches for 16 yards, which is good for 0.2 yards per snap. That is what a lockdown corner looks like. What a great developmental player for this Niners organization. And I round out with this. This is why 49ers fans should be really excited about what they've seen from this ball club to start the season. And shout out to Brad Dennis. Sent me a photo of him at the Superdome with his squad, with his family and friends watching the game. I love the attire, by the way. The big hats, they're a vibe. The chain, dyeing the beard. Perfect for New Orleans as well, as the Niner fans took over the Superdome. And thank you for sending me that photo. Thanks for supporting the show. But he's representing this fan base, right, with that smile. And this is why Niner fans should be excited. It was supposed to take a while for this Niners defense to get going. And we talked about how there was going to be some bumps along the road. John Lynch warned us of that. And I had said, this defense in Week 18 going to look a lot different than it will early in the year. And early on, this Niners offense, which going into the year returned a lot of key cogs, going to have to carry the load, right? But part of the reason the Niners are 2-0 is how well this defense has been able to play. And when you're playing complementary 3-phase football, you're going to have a chance to win week in and week out, especially with this coaching staff and the existing talent on this team. But also with these young players, they're developing quickly before our eyes. And it's been well documented that the Niners, John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan, whiffed on a few draft classes when they were contending and making it to NFC Championship games, which is why they kind of had to reset and rebuild this year because they didn't have enough talent, depth, or youth. These past 2 drafts may be franchise-altering for San Francisco, especially with this 2025 class that I'm really starting to get excited about. And I do think that eventually Alfred Collins and CJ West can be really good players. But Mykel Williams, Upton Stout, Marquise Siegel, Connor Colby steps in at left guard yesterday. He plays really well. You needed these young players to play well, develop. You needed to hit on these draft picks. The past 2 drafts looking pretty damn good. And the 2024 class looking good too. Also, we've seen a lot of signs of life from this offense. This unit can continue to get better, and they'll have more potential when they're healthy. And do the Niners finally no longer have questions at kicker? Great job by Eddie Pinheiro stepping in yesterday and drilling those long kicks. Don't win the game without it. And lastly, got to emphasize this. We didn't see it last year. This has been missing. Even when the Niners have been a great team, they're playing well in all 3 phases. And it's awesome to see that Kyle Shanahan seems re-energized. Because last year I was concerned about his overall mental and physical health. There's also this. If Purdy misses some time, you have confidence that Mac Jones can step in and play well. What he did yesterday has to inspire a lot of confidence. And what's great about Mac Jones, of course that he played well. First round pick for a reason. What he did at Alabama was special. But the Niners got him on a very cheap deal. 2 years, under $9 million total. He's under team control. And if he continues to play well, if you want to after this year, you can use him as a trade piece. If not, you've got a high-level backup. If you're still hanging out, enjoying the show, give me a real one roll call. We appreciate you for supporting the show. I'll be back later with another episode on the 49ers Report, and we'll see you then.